Good morning, everybody. This is Nate Manahan. I am live from Indianapolis, Indiana, and we are the High Five. Let's get some music going and see as we get started. I've got Brian Linke in from Warsaw, Indiana. How are you, Mr. Brian Linke?
I couldn't be better, Nate. Thanks for having me.
Oh, we love having you here. Let's get you up on the screen. And from Glenwood Springs, the home of 10 billion elk and 3 beautiful shards, soon to be 4, Mr. Danny Shard.
Good morning. High five, everybody.
High five. It is going to be a great morning. We got 5 different topics this morning. We've got everything from talking about, I don't even know what we're going to talk about because I've been so excited. I'm adding a 6 because I just wanted to talk to Danny about this. I told him I was going to bring it up this morning. I know Brian will have a good viewpoint on this. Let's talk about the rumors that there's going to be another Tiger versus Phil 2. But it's so much better because that first one was kind of a bust, let's be honest. The number 2 has 2-on-2, and the rumors are that they're going to be joined by Tom Brady and Peyton Manning sometime in May to do a social distancing live golf event. I love that idea. What do you think, Danny Shard and Brian Linke?
I love the idea too. This is the first I've heard of it. I think it's an amazing idea. I think it's something that I think people are. I mean, it's golf season. They've already postponed the Masters. They haven't canceled it, I don't think, right? They canceled Wimbledon. I know that. But no, I think people are itching to watch something, and I think that's good entertainment. So yeah, I'm all for it.
What do you think, Danny?
100%. Yeah, I mean, you can't obviously anything golf related like this. I'm going to be glued to the screen. But you had my man Peyton Manning. I was there when he won Super Bowl 50, so huge fan of him as well. Everybody knows I'm a big Tiger fan. There's nothing like a comeback story like he's had. So all that. But you get these guys on the course together. Phil, the ultimate trash talker. In fact, I got a shirt from the last time, which I was disappointed in the first go round of the match, but I've got a shirt that's Tiger versus Phil, so I'm prepared for it already. I'm pumped. It's going to be good.
That is so awesome. I am so. Here's the thing. What I just love is the spectacle. Who will be the biggest trash talker? Because that was one of the things last time is that Phil and Tiger. Neither, Phil's been he's a king of Twitter. Tiger is certainly more reserved. Who's going to be the biggest trash talker between the four of them? If all four are on the golf course, they're competing against each other. They all really want to win. Who's going to be, and how are they going to be trash talkers out there on the course?
I think Peyton Manning by far is the biggest trash talker.
I think Peyton and Phil are gonna be at each other and have you're right, Brian. I mean, Phil is the ultimate trash talker, but you get someone like Peyton that's gonna give it right back to him. It's gonna set the whole thing off, and they're gonna be going at each other. I think that'll be good.
Yeah, whoever came up with this idea, and I really hope it's 100%. It's not. But get it to happen. I mean, I think you could start like a GoFundMe right now and make more money than Tiger made last year in a GoFundMe of people just wanting to do this. So let's make it happen, boys. Let's get this thing going. I just think it would be the coolest thing. My guess is that they're probably going to do it in Florida. Last question on this topic. If Tiger and Phil are going against each other, and the assumption is Tiger and Peyton together because they are really close friends in real life, and Tom and Phil together. Who are your odds? Let's come on, Sportsbook Brian, Sportsbook Danny. What are the odds? What pair is going to win?
So wait a minute. Who's paired with who?
So the rumors are Tiger is going to be with Peyton because they're close friends. They're actually like real life, everyday, text each other friends. And then Tom and Phil would be paired together. Oh, I've left you speechless.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the answer is. I mean,
the answer is Tiger and Peyton. I'll make it easy for you. Tiger and Peyton win 3-2. They're going to draw it out a little bit, but they're going to win with a couple holes to go. I mean, Phil's great. I don't know about Tom Brady's golf game. I would say he's probably pretty decent considering he's one of the best athletes in the world. But you get Peyton out there and Tiger. I mean, what is he number? I think he's ranked 10 or 11 right now in the world. So it's a no-brainer, hands down. I think they've got to drag it out and get it close to 18 holes as best they can. But they're going to get left in the dust behind those guys.
Well, and you have Tiger Woods, who is certainly most likely still at the elite of his game. The last time we saw him a year ago, we saw him, a year and 2 weeks at the Masters where he comes back. I'm sitting there watching. I mean, I'm not a huge golf fan, but I remember as soon as I saw that alert that he's pushing in the lead and he's going to win, that was appointment viewing to be watching him at the Masters. Anything Tiger does, he moves the needle. And you take Peyton. Peyton's been playing golf. Tom's working on his throws for Tampa Bay. He's not going to be doing any extra work. This is all about good feelings for everyone and having something to do. But his real goal, I hope it happens. I hope the rumors aren't fake. Certainly Tiger v. Phil, the first one made a lot of money but was kind of a bust, and they need to have a splash here. And this is certainly something you can do because, I mean, let's go into this off the cuff because this also takes us to WrestleMania this weekend. They're doing a WrestleMania from their training center. Instead of doing WrestleMania, I think it was supposed to be in Tampa, actually, at the Raymond James Stadium. And so no crowd, no audience, just the people wrestling against each other. Everybody gets swabbed an hour and a half before to make sure they don't have coronavirus, taking all the protections. I saw an interview on the Pat McAfee show with Triple H. Yes, I saw it like 2 a.m. this morning, saying how they're taking all the precautions for WrestleMania. These events, when you have sporting events like this that are doing this, is this still fun to have something? And will more people watch WrestleMania this weekend than ever have? Because I'm not a huge wrestling fan. I don't know if you guys are, but I may tune in just because I'm looking for something to watch.
I can think of other things, but
I used to be big into wrestling with my dad. We would watch. It was back when The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin and Triple H, if you guys remember back in the 90s and early 2000s. That was the time I watched it. It was a Tuesday night thing, I think. But yeah, I probably won't catch this one. But you're right, Nate. A lot of people are just looking for entertainment. They'll check out anything. Hence the Tiger King conversation we had yesterday, right? It's people are looking for any ways they can entertain themselves right now. So
My favorite guy was George the Animal Steele. He was he didn't talk, and he was all hairy. His back was all hairy, and he had a green tongue.
Oh, I have absolutely no idea who George Steele was.
The Animal Steele. George the Animal Steele.
Never
Never heard of him. I think that was back in times gone by. That will take us into our number one. We're going to go a little bit of number one. And let's get ready for number one. Number one. Numero uno. All right, our first topic this morning, and because we gave you a couple bonus topics right off the top, because we know you are that longing for, as Janice said, we put a smile on your face, I saw already. That is awesome. We're glad people are smiling. That's what our goal is, to give you a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of encouragement. And let's start with what I came up with the first one. I want to know these guys' favorite 90s movie and or 90s television show. We were all in our teens back in the 90s, right, guys? Well, some of us were just getting born, Danny. And so I'm going to go to Brian Linke first. Brian,
I wasn't in my teens. Was I 90?
No, you were. I was helping you out there, Brian. You didn't have to show it. You ruined it. You ruined it.
There were a lot of really good movies in the 90s, but if I had to pick one, I mean, like Silence of the Lambs was in the 90s, I think, right? Goodfellas was in the 90s. Those are two like amazing movies for me. But I think the number one movie, if I had to pick one, would be Pulp Fiction. I think that was my number one movie in the 90s. And I think the number one TV show would be, didn't The Sopranos start in the 90s? I think it did.
Yeah, late 90s and finished early 2000. I forget. Yeah, no, Sopranos.
So, I mean, to me, that's if it's not the best TV show of all time, but then, if you're counting just regular, normal ABC, NBC, CBS TV, it would have to be, I think, Seinfeld, right? I mean, that started in the 90s as well. So.
All right, I'm going to bring up, these guys won't be able to see it on screen, but I'm going to bring up just name, this is marieclaire.com, says the 45 top movies of the 1990s. I'm going to name some of the names just to give us some of the great things. Thelma and Louise, Jerry Maguire, Four Weddings and a Funeral, Boogie Nights, Fargo, Tommy Boy, Boys in the Hood, There's Something About Mary, Point Break, Goodfellas, Shakespeare in Love, The Sixth Sense, The Big Lebowski, Rushmore, Dazed and Confused, Princess Mononoke, I have no idea, Pretty Woman was in the 90s, Edward Scissorhands, Home Alone in the 90s, Terminator 2, The Silence of the Lambs, Poetic Justice. All right, I'll go off that. Danny Shard, those are some. What were some of the great things that you saw in the 90s?
Wait a minute. Did you say Pulp Fiction?
I think it was coming. I did not say Pulp Fiction. I didn't go through the whole list there. I was just giving some ideas of some of the great movies. I totally agree. Pulp Fiction, Quentin Tarantino, really his first foray into major film, still probably, in my opinion, his best. And let's be honest, it is why we call Brian Linke, what?
The Wolf.
The Wolf.
I'm 30 minutes away. I'll be there in 10. Right? I'm 30 minutes away. I'll be there in 10.
It's an all-time great movie. That's without a doubt. My favorite movie of all time still is to this day. I can literally say every word of this movie, and that's Tin Cup. So big. Obviously, I'm a big golfer, but that is my
we're going Kevin
favorite
Costner.
movie.
Kevin Costner.
Costner, Russo. Yeah, it's Don Johnson's in this movie. It's my favorite movie of all time. Favorite movie of all time.
Oh, for God's sake.
I love it. I love it. And what were the 90s? I'm a 90s kid, What were the 90s without getting off school and going and watching Saved by the Bell? So that's my 90s TV show when I was,
Zach Morris,
7, 8,
baby.
10 years
AC
old.
Slater.
Zach Morris, AC Slater. Had a huge crush on Kelly Kapowski. That was my show.
There is a show on what's it
Never
called?
seen it.
You've never seen Saved by the Bell. Okay, that shows our generations here. But there was a show on Prime. I forget. It's one of my kids' shows, and Kelly Kapowski is the mom on the show. I forget, but I watch it with my daughter. I forget the name, and it just takes me back every time I watch an episode with her because I'm like, oh wow, this is like flashback to. I just keep thinking of her back in the day when she was on Saved by the Bell, because that show, it started like mid 80s and went all the way through, and those people, I mean, they're still talking again about revival. They revived that thing like 4 different ways.
They have, yeah, and they're still talking about it.
Yep.
I think they'll do it again soon.
All right, so there's so many ways to go for my favorite movie, but Brian already mentioned the one I was choosing when I went through the list in my head and thinking, and it's one that got out of the genre for my favorite movies of what things I was watching. So I was high school, college in the '90s, and I remember the first time I saw Silence of the Lambs and how much that affected me and freaked me out. And Jodie Foster and Sir Anthony Hopkins, and I'm going to eat his liver with a small Chianti. Oh man, that freaked me out. That movie. Beans. Yes, Farmer beans. Oh, so do you guys remember the first time you saw Silence of the Lambs? That movie just was.
I do.
I saw it in the theater.
Oh, look at you. I say I didn't see it in the theater. I remember. I think I had to sneak it because I don't think I was allowed to watch rated R movies at the time. I'm not 100% sure. It may have been one of my sneak-in movies or go to the friend's house to watch. But all right, and then my other one is 1990s is Seinfeld. And you guys, so Seinfeld,
I said Seinfeld.
Yeah, I know. For me, it changed. Seinfeld changed how filming of comedies are done. It introduced what I think is the best comedy of all time, a setting of pacing. The first 3 seasons of Arrested Development. It certainly brought us into the ability. Without Seinfeld, things like The Office, Parks and Recreation would have never existed. People being able to have a voice who were actually. Were comedians, Ray Romano, others. It actually brought in that comedians didn't have to be actors; they could be comedians and build a show around it. And it showed that the show could be funny and entertaining, and when it really was just a show about nothing. Danny, were you a fan of Seinfeld at all? Because you were a little bit younger. Did that?
Who wasn't? Yeah, Seinfeld was awesome. In fact, my first trip to New York. My friend that we went to, we walked by the cafe that they were always at. And I can't remember if me and you did, Brian, but yeah, I mean, love Seinfeld. Huge fan.
That's awesome.
Well, Curb Your Enthusiasm is
okay. Larry David
played off of that, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, that's right.
And I haven't watched the new Curb Your Enthusiasm came back. I actually will probably subscribe to HBO here again. I kind of go about 3 months a year. I binge HBO shows and subscribe. But did you watch the new season of it, Brian?
I watched the first, what was it, 2 or 3? Yeah, I mean, it's hilarious. I mean, that's my kind of humor. I mean, so I find it extremely. It's just so clever, like. The whole thing, like those guys are so smart that think of that. It's just crazy.
That is awesome. All right, we're time for number 2 as we give you all of our bonus features here on Thursday, April 2nd. Two. Numero dos. Number 2. Number 2, good question, Mr. Linky. Number 2 is when I'm feeling stressed. This is a little more serious of a question. We'll get back to some fun things and thoughts here. When I'm feeling stressed, which we all have, I think there have been moments where you feel like a punch in the stomach when you look at some of the stuff going on. You see some of the numbers. Maybe it was the alert you woke up to this morning that there are 6.6 million people that filed for unemployment last week. When you're feeling stressed, when you're healthy, how do you respond? And then maybe one of the unhealthy ways that is that little flag that, hey, I need to recenter myself. I'm going a direction that I shouldn't be because I'm responding to the stress. We all have both ways. For us gentlemen, I'll let you guys go first. I think I shared to you what I'm going to share, so you may steal it, but go for it.
Dan, you want to go first?
Linky, are you going? I'll go.
It's got to involve a golf course for Danny. It's got to. I've got it.
It is for sure. I mean, I live on one, so whenever, I shouldn't say stressed, but I'll take the conversation a little bit away from golf. So I'm a big hunting and firearms advocate. So I definitely go out and I call it little recoil therapy. So whenever I'm a little stressed, I'll go out and go to the shooting range, fire off some rounds, and it's makes me feel a lot better whenever I'm done. What was the other question? What do I eat?
Or not what do you eat? Not what you eat. That's what I say. I can know for me. But when you're dealing with stress in an unhealthy way, what is a flag for me? I'll use mine. For me, I know when I'm starting to eat ice cream at 11 o'clock at night, right out of the container, I'm a little too stressed and I don't have any self-control. And so for me, that's my thing. And I know we all have like those little triggers that we've learned in the years of our life. We're like, okay, reminder, shouldn't eat that many double stuffed Oreos. I don't know why all mine are around eating. But I know there are other things. I have a friend that knows when he gets to a place and he drives there and he's like, man, why did I take the long route? Because he'll just drive all over the place and make a 30-minute drive, an hour and a half drive. And he's like, okay, well, that's not just soothing for him, though some people that would be. He's like, man, I'm not all in there. What for you guys? Is there anything that you're like, hey, this is how I know that I'm just dealing with stress and not the most healthy way? I need to get back to it.
That's actually a really good question. I don't. In fact, whenever I'm a little stressed, I find myself more buried in work than usual and trying to just kind of turn it off and get out. So I don't do a lot of binge eating, although I have been known to have a beer or two. So maybe that's my trigger. Brian, what's yours?
I think the thing that I do, and I think people are going to find this a little bit strange, but I just go for a drive. I think just getting away and no radio, no music, no nothing, to where I can kind of like clear my head and just kind of gather my thoughts. It doesn't have to be a long drive, but that's kind of what I do. And the unhealthy way is breaking rule number one. I think as far as like with stress and people panic. And I think that's a really unhealthy way, not only to deal with stress, but to live. And we all break that rule. And we were in Tallahassee and I broke my own rule. But I try hard. I try hard not to panic. And I think that's just an unhealthy way to deal with it.
And thing about this is we are all going to go through stress points. And so we just have to figure out how do we protect it? How do we put boundaries around us to make sure that people are speaking into our lives or we're self-aware of what's going on? And that's the thing we're trying to, as I was thinking about that question, I didn't want us to because I want this to be high five or upbeat, but I also want to be reality. Man, the world is tough and weird right now. And if we're not self-aware and we're just putting it all in, it's all going to explode in ways we don't want to see it. So let's learn who we are and how to tell the little safety guards and the guardrails around our life to make sure that we're living the best self that we possibly can and the most real self that we can. All right, you guys ready for number 3?
Yep.
All right, let's do number 3.
Number three. All
right, this is one that I'm really interested. I'm going to coming in to what your guys' thoughts are.
3.
Our number 3 is something I'm going to say. I go through this often. I'm not a hockey fan. I'm a huge sports fan. I follow every sport. Some more than others. Like I talked about golf, but I always know when the tournaments are going. I know who the top 10 is. It's on my front of my ESPN app. I'm in my ESPN app multiple times, but I've never become a hockey fan. Now, some of that may have just been where I grew up, but I went to hockey games. Like I went to the Fort Wayne Comets multiple times a year growing up, and hockey just never became part of my vernacular. Right out of college, I moved out to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and tried to become a Philadelphia. I can't even think of their name right now. Where are they? The Flyers. Jeez, the Flyers and the Penguins were playing in a series in the Stanley Cup, and that was. It still didn't draw me in. So my question, and I know by the numbers, hockey is not that popular in the U.S. It's the only thing it's that and maple syrup in Canada. But so tell me about what you guys think of hockey. I know, Danny, you're more of a hockey fan. I actually don't know much, Brian, if you were an Islanders fan growing up or what your story is. So tell me, what do you guys think of NHL hockey?
It wasn't an Islanders fan. They're out on Long Island. That's why they're called the Islanders,
Yeah.
Nate.
Oh,
I'm a Rangers fan.
The blue seats, Rangers, Madison Square Garden, the whole thing. But the reason that hockey is not more popular in the United States, for one thing, they don't have well, I think they do now because with ESPN, but like the TV contract, like for years and years and years, hockey just wasn't televised. Well, if it's not televised, then people can't watch it. The other thing is, and they were playing around with this. I don't know if you guys remember when they had the little thing that followed the puck, right? It was like a line, almost like a marker kind of thing that would follow the puck so people could find it on TV. But the reason that it's not more popular, in my opinion, is the puck's too small, and they need that nobody can find the puck when they're watching it. So if you can't find the puck or the ball or whatever, it's hard to watch the game. So if they make the puck bigger, I think more people will watch it. I just fixed the entire problem.
I do know what you're talking about, and that was actually the first time I saw that was one of the All-Star games. And I was like, what a cool feature, right? I mean, and that got more people watching it. But, I'm not a huge fan. I watch it quite a bit just because I'll watch anything sports related when my wife has Grey's Anatomy on or something like that in the other room. I'm just trying to find anything sports on TV. I'll tell you though, one of my first hockey experiences growing up was an IHL team called the Houston Aeros, and it's like the D League for NBA basically. It's all the guys that couldn't make it to the NHL but could skate, and they could fight really well too. So this first game I went to, I'll never forget. There must have been 10 fights. There's blood all over the ice. It was the coolest experience at a hockey game that I've ever been to. In fact, we did our Colorado team Christmas party at a hockey game this year. So love it. And yeah, I think it's just going to keep getting more popular, especially if they do things like Brian's saying. They got to put that puck tracer on every game so people can see the puck, and they got to fight more. People want to see it. It's entertaining. So I think a couple things they could do.
Yeah, I think they're trying to, like, they do like the outside games. Like I think they had a game at Wrigley Field, right? They had so they're doing that. I think that's kind of a cool.
Had a game at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, they're trying to do. So yeah, no, I mean, and I'm a playoff hockey fan, right? I mean, hockey. It seems like everybody gets in. So like, I'm not even sure why, you even watch the regular. I mean, teams that are like 15, 20 games under 500 are in the playoffs. So it's playoff hockey. Although down in Tampa, Tampa has now become a major hockey city. I mean, it is crazy how rabid those people are about hockey. Crazy.
That's amazing. I mean, you think about the Florida teams. I mean, that is not something you grow up with. In Florida is playing ice hockey. How much do you think it is that we don't see a lot of youth hockey? So, like, certainly in football, we all grew up. All of us probably played some sort of football. Though that's going to change. We know the youth numbers are dying there. We played baseball. We played basketball. It was something we could do recreationally. Hockey takes an extra effort. You've got to have a rink. Even if you're doing roller hockey, it's still an extra piece because there's extra equipment than is available than what we generally have. How much of a role that we don't play it as a kid does that play into it versus what we, all the other sports that we have that we all, did something with in gym class, even in fourth grade?
No, I think that plays a big role. Like you said, Nate, you can't just get a ball and go out there and just play. It takes some ice. I mean, you need ice, right? And even on roller hockey, you need the roller skates, and you need an open area. You need a smooth surface, and so yeah, I think it just takes a little bit more. That's why it's not nearly as popular.
It's the only thing you've got. I mean, you have to grow up with a sport like that. Actually, one of my second cousins, I met him for the first time at our family reunion last year. He lives in Scottsdale. He's 14 years old. His parents take him all across the country going to all these. I mean, he's in all-star hockey. I mean, he's a stud. But he's doing roller hockey. He's doing ice hockey. I'm telling you, you don't do that if you don't start really young and get comfortable on the ice and get comfortable on those skates. So there's a lot of kids doing it, though. It's super popular.
Do you realize that the Tampa Bay Lightning last year had the second best regular season record of all time? They were one game away from tying the all-time record, and then got swept by the number 8 seed in the playoffs. Lost 4 in a row, and they went through the entire year as the number 1 seed overall, and had the second best record of all time, and got beat by the Columbus Blue Jackets in 4 games.
Wow.
An amazing stat.
It is.
There you go. Look at that stat. I'm telling you guys every day I'm going to say this. If you want to know some crazy stats on any sports-related topic, ask Brian Linke.
That's not really true. It's just that, okay, when a team has the second best record of all time in the history of hockey, and it gets beat by the number 8 seed in 4 straight games, I mean, come on.
Who does hold the best record, Brian?
No, I don't know.
Wayne Gretzky.
I don't know. I just know that the Lightning were 1 game away from tying it.
All right. And I will say this. 2 of the greatest sports movies of all time, let's be honest, were The Mighty Ducks, with the incredible Emilio Estevez leading the Ducks to a championship after championship, and of course, Slapshot. And let's
Slapshot, yes. Absolutely.
Let's throw Miracle in there too. It's an okay hockey movie. All right, let's go to number 4.
Mystery Alaska. If you've never seen Mystery Alaska,
It's time
it's one of the funnier movies.
for number
You gotta
4.
watch it. Great movie.
Number 4, y'all.
I got to look that one up. I don't know.
Let's get that number 4.
All right, to number 4, we are back to something a little more fun. The best meal you, Mr. Shard, you, Mr. Linke, have eaten in the last year. What is the best meal? And it's not just the food, but though that's obviously going to be part of it. The food, the experience, the atmosphere. It's the memory that you have. What is in the last year that you've had?
I'll let Danny answer this first.
I've got a couple of them actually, but they both involve steakhouses. So one of the more recent ones, I was with you gentlemen, and we were visiting Northwest Payment Brokers, Amy Lund's team. Shout out to Amy Lund and the team at Northwest Payment Brokers. We were up visiting them, and we went to a restaurant. I believe it was El Gaucho.
Yep.
El Gaucho, something like that.
You left me home.
Oh, you weren't there. That's right.
I know.
That meal was next level. I have not had a steak and lobster like that. But then we also went to a steak restaurant whenever we went down to Phoenix for the Waste Management Open this year. Met up with Mr. Hoskins, and he always enjoys a good steakhouse. So went to one of the best steakhouse restaurants I've ever been to, called Steak 44 in Phoenix. It was phenomenal.
That's awesome. Mr. Linke, how about you?
I mean, I can list a bunch of them, but Danny and I were in New York together, and we ate a meal with Sean Feehan at an Italian restaurant called Elio's, and the atmosphere in that, I mean, that was just a pure Italian. No one spoke a lot of English in there, and that was some real life, authentic Italian food. So that was one. But I think another one with Mr. Hoskins, in Vegas, in the Venetian, there's a restaurant called Tao in there, and I just think the atmosphere, the food. The food is. I wouldn't say it's unbelievable, but I just think the whole atmosphere, the way you order. We normally sit at the big round table with the spinning thing, and there's just a lot of different things, and I just think that's a really fun place to go eat. Oh yeah. Did I lose you guys?
That buttery sea bass at Tao have amazing. That thing, I could eat that all day. I'm going to choose one of the things I would say is one of my favorite meals. This is unusual, but it's just been probably it's most memorable for me this year. There's a restaurant in Midtown Atlanta called Empire State South that I've been wanting to go to for a long time. It's a Beard Award winner. It's really good, and so I ended up when we were down for the Atlanta Road Show, and I was there, and I had some meetings through Thursday and Friday, and had a meeting scheduled for Monday, and I was going to stay the whole weekend while I was down there, and the whole world just shut down when I was there, and no one was out and about, and no one wanted to do any meetings, and I was trying to get a car to drive back, and they wouldn't even rent me a one-way car, and so I was stuck, and I was like, so I looked up, and I walked up to the Empire State South, and there was probably, usually the place would be packed and no room for me, and there was probably 5 people other than workers in the whole place, and I sat at the bar for 4 hours and just had them bring me course after course of food, and they had this crunchy rice thing that they broke an egg on top of it was just ridiculous. And to have that like experience where like there were 5 servers that were just taking care of me as they would swoop in, bring me a little food and swoop out. I will say that was quite an experience. I sat there taking notes. I had my little moleskin notebook and was just sitting there, and I sat there for hours. And that was an experience to be at a top restaurant when no one is there. It was like it was a private dining experience. Now, unfortunately, it was because of all that's going on around in the world. But that was certainly one of my favorite meals.
That is next level. I love that.
So, all right, gentlemen, we have made it to our number 5, and it is time.
It's time for number 5
on the high five.
Number 5, number 5, number 5.
5.
Let's
All
go
right,
5,
the question
y'all.
I posed to our gentlemen this morning is what are some of the sales mistakes we must avoid to gain rapport and trust with future customers and merchants? What are some of the things that we teach, and either by experience or by observation of what we've seen around our partners and our sales professionals that are around us all the time? What are some of the things that we say, you've got to avoid doing this in order to be successful? I will bring up Mr. Linky and Mr. Shard and let them choose who goes first.
I'll go first.
All right.
And again, I'm the old school guy. I started off, I've been a sales guy my entire life, cold calling, New York City, Empire State Building, World Trade Center, hit every single door, and that was back in the day, before the internet, before cell phones, sticking quarters in pay phones, over and over again, calling in for my messages, writing them down on my hand, things like that. So, but I think the one thing that a salesperson does wrong, I think a salesperson talks too much. And that is something that I learned from a guy who trained me on my very first job in New York City is to stop talking. And I think that's a big mistake. And believe me, I break it all the time because because I love hearing myself talk, because I always think that I have a lot of good things to say. But I think that the number one thing, and again, this is an old school way of doing it, but it's to stop talking. And the number one thing to do is to listen more. And I think if you'll do that, a lot of times people will answer their own questions. People will say, and basically put the ball on the tee for you, where you can, answer the question and get the sale just based on what your merchant is saying. So that would be stop talking, listen more.
Perfect. I like that a lot because, I'm in. As I talk, I don't even feel like I should say any words, but we don't listen, do we? We're always thinking, and I fight this a lot about trying to get to my next phrase and what I'm going to say instead of actually listening to what a person says and allowing myself just to be present and in the moment and being prepared enough to know that I can come up with something to say without having to come up with it while they're talking and not listening to them, because that's something I've had to work very hard on. And like even what I'm doing right now in the producing of this and trying to do it is trying to listen to what Brian Linke is saying, even though I'm trying to get my next thing up. And it's a challenge. I'm not always great at it, but certainly it's something that we struggle with. Danny, what do you say?
I couldn't agree more with that. The other thing, and I think this is what, the cash discount programs that we promote all the time, right? I mean, it's making all of us much more money. But I think it also, puts that mentality in where a sales partner has the potential to try to do what's in their best interest as opposed to the merchant, right? Like only focusing on a cash discount, only like really trying to shove them in one direction, as opposed to what you guys are saying is pitching options and sitting back and listening, right? What's best for the merchant might not always be what's best for us as salespeople, but that's okay. And I think that's where we have cash discounting. We start to see more greed that's taken over in people, and they're going to just pitch one product or one solution because that's easier, and they know this, and they're going to make the most money, and they're going to shove the merchant and sell them into that. Which, as salespeople, we got to talk people into certain things, right? We've got to educate them and get them thinking a little differently too. But there's that fine line of being pushy and shoving someone into a situation that might not be the best for their business. And it starts with what you guys are saying with listening. So I think a lot of partners can take from that and not put themselves first. Obviously pitch what they feel is going to be the most effective to get a good response from a merchant, but sitting back and listening and letting them come to the conclusion what's best for their business. So
I mean, and again, in today's day, I mean, obviously things are a little bit different than they were back in the mid '80s. So, but there are just other ways, that people communicate, right? So, I mean, we didn't have, the internet and Facebook and LinkedIn and all these other things that people do to talk to one another. But again, I think, like Danny just talked about, listen more, talk less.
That is so important. And I'm going to read a couple things here from an email I actually sent to the guys here, and I'm going to talk about how you can even subscribe to this email for free. But I thought this is where I came up with this idea. I was reading it from yesterday's email. It says, sales mistakes to avoid to gain customers' trust. And I'm just going to read this quote. It said, according to a 2017 State of Sales report, customer satisfaction is far away the top measure of sales success. Additionally, 66% of sales teams track customer satisfaction as their leading KPI, key performance indicator, making customer trust a critical factor in sales. And then it goes in and says there are 4 things that they suggest. Don't prioritize commissions over customer satisfaction. So, and this is where I see it in our industry more than I think a lot of others, where we're putting them in a situation just because we can get an additional bonus. And let me tell you, PayProtect partners or people that are in merchant services, the biggest picture on that is people who put people in leases for products that cost $200 where their repayment is $8,000 so they can get that big upfront bonus. And at the long term, I believe in the long term, you are not as successful because you do things like that. All right, so I'll just leave that out there. The volume is too loud, which is just what Brian said. That you're not listening. Here's what American Management Association found: annoying sales behaviors that lead to losing a customer. Here are the top 4. Being too pushy, 24% said that. Not taking no for an answer, which is something we teach. But when people, when they're really saying no, not listening, and talking too much. Those are the 4 things that make you lose deals. And if you're losing deals, you're not being successful. Lack of focus.
I should have written a book.
You should have. Well, absolutely, you should have. And lack of focus in building referral business and not thinking long term. That's where where the person that you're talking to. And this is where this story of the coronavirus, when we're saying, hey, if I become infected and then I'm around 10 people and each one of those people infect 10 other people. Yes. 5% of us will not ever, will have anything, will only have something serious happen, but it just keeps infecting. And that's what we're worrying. This whole thing, think about that in the sales. That's true every time you're interacting with someone, whether through email, through phone calls, in person. You are around someone who has the connection and the network to get you your next sale. And everything is thinking multiple steps forward instead of just thinking, man, I just don't want this person. I'm going to treat them like crap. Let me tell you, if you start having that opinion, again, you're losing way too much. Last thoughts on the sales thing, and then I'm going to make a recommendation and a tip, and if you guys have one here too. But what are some of those things I just read? What are things that stood out to you?
Well, as far as sales mistakes, well, I mean, I mentioned two of
Yeah.
them. I mean, the pushy thing again. It's just, you just have to know the room, right?
Yep.
You just have to know the audience, know the room, know the people that are in it. And there are some people that you feel like you can be a little bit pushier with. I'm not saying you don't be aggressive in what you're doing, but I just think that knowing the room and knowing the people around you, and that's something that you can't teach it, right? I mean, that's just something that you're just going to have to learn by being out there, being on the street and getting some street smarts and just knowing who you're talking to.
And we're about to get some exercising going on in the background here between Mr. Brian Linky.
Jacob Linky.
Jacob Linky out there.
Jacob Linky's about to get after it.
He does. He's like, we got a live exercise video right here on the high five.
He has no idea what's going on.
Look at that. Way to go, Dad.
He's taking care of it. All right, look at that. The Linky 160 pounds. That is a state.
What do you want to think?
Camera. You can see me.
Help me.
All right.
Me.
All right. So I'm going to make one suggestion here, and it's just if you guys are interested, one of the things I get every couple days is this. Let me bring it up here so those who see it. Inside.com. It's the best email newsletter system that's out there. It's put together by a guy named Jason Calacanis, who started several different companies, including he was a former co-founder with Mark Cuban back in the day, and was purchased by Mark Cuban and put what became Broadcast.com. And so he started this thing, Real News curated by real humans of newsletters. If you click on the business section, they have an inside sales newsletter that is daily, that is really, really good. And you're going to find other stuff in here, lots of other, you can do inside cryptocurrency, you can do inside MMA, I do a bunch of inside streaming, and that's, there's all kinds of stuff. But just a suggestion, it's a great way to subscribe to something. Go to inside.com, really easy, and subscribe to your favorite newsletters. And then when that first time they come in, just drag it. If you're a Google user, just drag it over. Just drag that email over to your primary inbox so you get it in the main part of your inbox and it's not hidden in the updates or the promotions tab. And then you'll get really good content every day. And it's a great thing. All right, gentlemen, we are just finishing up here. I'm going to bring some music up as we finish up the high five. Can you guys tell me a little bit, one tip, trick, encouragement? What are your last words to all of PayProc Nation, all the business-to-business sales professionals, and the people just looking for a little hope and fun out there in the United States and around the world? What would be your last parting words as we finish a high five for Thursday?
I mean, mine, I don't think ever changes. I mean, I just think, again, we're in this thing, everybody's in it together, right? Everybody knows what's going on, which is, to me, makes it so unique, right? I mean, so it's not what's going on in your world. Everybody's in the same thing. And I just think that the number one thing to do is wake up every single day, with a positive attitude. Think about, what you want to do that day, whether it's just, reaching out to merchants. It's hard to get out there because, a lot of us are locked inside, but, sending emails, getting on LinkedIn, getting on, in different chats and just keep fighting.
Absolutely. Mr. Danny Shard, what are your closing words?
Linky just stole most of mine. I mean, it's just really stay positive. I like to get up every day and get after it. There's no hiding and putting your head under the pillow. we're all in this together. So stay positive and get educated. Help your merchants a lot of different ways, not just signing their merchant account. We're going to be putting together a lot of information, hopefully, to share with you. So if you're not able to get out there and educate yourself on ways these merchants can get relief in a lot of different ways, we're going to help you with that too. So educate yourself. Stay tuned with us. Tomorrow, the High Five Friday is going to be awesome. You don't want to miss it. So jump on.
All right. On that, I am Nate Manahan. That was Mr. Danny Shard and Brian Linke. It's another High Five, and we will see you tomorrow around 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 8 a.m. Mountain. And this is a High Five. Everybody have a great day.
See you guys.
Have a great day, everybody.